family, friends. Thanks for joining me again today for tutorial number 5. My name is Kaylee and I paint wet on wet oil paintings. Today we're going to do a step-by-step tutorial on how to paint a cool desert winter scene. I thought we'd just take it down a level because it's been super hot here and do a winter scene. Why not? I've already applied the liquid white onto the canvas, so it's ready to go. The paints will be in the description below, but I'll also run through them. We have titanium white, yellow ochre, bright red, Alizarin Crimson, Sap Green, Phthalo Blue, Prussian Blue, dark Sienna, and this is a Burgundy mix. We have equal portions of Sap Green and Alizarin Crimson mixed into a brown, and you can see the lighter version of it over here. All right, let's go. I'm going to start in the top with the Prussian Blue. We will tap into the Prussian Blue with our brush and get a good amount in there. We'll grab just a bit of Phthalo Blue as well. We're just going to start on the top with our X's. Grab a little more paint. I'm going to kind of work a little bit of dimension in here with the brush by wiggling it around and just getting some shapes, maybe a little bit of clouds, some movement. Now I'm going to pick up just a little bit of Alizarin Crimson and go right back into that blue and mix that up into a nice lavender. You can see I'm doing an X stroke here. You can also X on your pattern or just want to get it nice and mixed up. And I'm just going to wiggle in some clouds. The harder that you push the brush down, the more paint is going to come off and it'll be a lot darker. So keep that in mind while you're wiggling around. You can see my canvas is going all over the place in my easel here. And then I'm just going to kind of soften out the base of that just to get the remaining paint off the brush and soften it a little. Now I'm going to pick up just a tiny bit more on the tip of my brush, a little darker this time. And we'll just add a little bit more of a darker lavender here, just in the bottom section. I just want a little bit more blue to this than we had up in this area. And I'm just putting in a few interesting cloud movements. And then we'll just scrub that in a little bit. Get the extra paint off the brush. Now, although we're doing a winter scene, it doesn't necessarily have to be cold, so I thought we would warm it up a little bit with some of these pink colors, and we'll see how it looks. I'm just softening it up now that I've cleaned out the excess paint from this brush. We'll just use it to blend out the bottom a little and give these edges a little bit of a soften. Now we're working bottom up so we don't grab too much blue into these clouds because we don't want to ruin that nice kind of pinkish and then purple layers here. So now we'll just soften up the top a little bit by doing our X stroke. And you can blend this as much or as little as you want. The more that you blend it, the more it's going to mix with the liquid white that we already have on the canvas. Nice strokes to get, long strokes to get the brush strokes out and just even that up a little bit all the way across. And we're going to pick up our fan brush and go right into the titanium white. Get some of that on the brush and pick up a little bright red. Oof, that was a little more than we needed. That's okay though. And we're gonna put in kind of this big, nice cloud back here that's just living up in the sky and swirling around, picking up some more paint. This is a real nice thick paint, and it's going to stick onto this thin layer that we just put up here from blending all of our paints. I'm just gonna layer in a couple and then we'll blend it out just like usual. I want to pick up a little more paint and we'll just dance in a little light little cloud up here and maybe another one over here. Just twirl your brush around and let it happen. I'm going to pick up a clean, dry 2-inch brush, and we'll use the top corner of that in a swirling kind of movement and just blend out the bottom of that cloud and really soften it. We want to leave this top shape as much as we can. And then we just wiggle out and swirl out some of that white that we applied with the bright red. And we have instant highlights on our clouds. We'll just blend out these just a little bit and lift your cloud. And soften that out. Go all the way across to get out any big brush strokes. Oop, and I got a little hair in here. That's okay. You just use the brush and pull it out. He's got away from me there. Let's see if we can, there we go. Let's pick up our fan brush once more and go right into that titanium white. You can see I picked up a little bit of blue. That's okay. We'll just dull it out with some of the red. And we'll move into this lower area and just put in a few more clouds. Just some layers of interest. Picking up a little bit more paint. And we'll just pick out a few more clouds. And I'm just wiggling that brush, and whatever comes off that's great. There we go. Sometimes I give it a good push up with the fan brush and you can get some different looks there. So we're twirling and pushing, and just allowing the paint to do its job. We'll pick up our blending brush, blend out the bottoms, just soften it up as much or as little as you want. Just blending, making sure that you're changing the direction that you're doing your little circles. So you don't want to always go in the same direction. And we'll just wipe out that brush a little bit. Just get some of that extra paint off that we just picked up. And we'll lift our cloud again. Give it a good lift. And soften that. Lift and soften until you reach the point that you like with your clouds. And then we're going to go all the way across and just get out those brush strokes. And using the brush to just soften the bottom of these clouds real nicely. So you just can't quite tell where they start and end. Got kind of these little drag marks from some of these clouds, which happens from time to time. If you have a little extra paint, that's okay. You just soften it out and move on. And just remember that if you spend too much time on trying to get the clouds to be perfect, you're not going to have enough time and energy to do some of the other parts of the painting. So sometimes you just have to move on and hope that it works out, or you learn some lessons from it and do it differently next time. So with that being said, we are going to move on to the mountain. I'm just going to clean off my palette here, move some of this paint. And we are going to pick up some titanium white. It's okay that it's a little dirty. We want some Prussian blue, a good bit of that, Phthalo Blue, Alizarin Crimson, and give that a good mix. We want to keep it just slightly marbled, and it should be toward the blue side. I want just a tiny bit of this brown mixture in here, and we'll add more white. All right, let's leave that. Clean off your knife. And we'll pick out our mountain. We're just going to cut off a little roll of paint by scraping down and getting that roll on the end of your knife. And we're pushing the knife into the canvas. And as a right-handed person, I move towards the left a lot, and that's where the paint will drag off more successfully to me. So I'm going to move it this way. If you're left-handed, it would just likely be the opposite. It just really depends on your comfort, but if you are left-handed, we're doing the same thing, just scraping paint down onto the outside of the knife. And it's important to have this point up. We're holding it with 2 fingers, point up, and if left-handed, you're going this way, and you can paint your mountains moving toward the right. It's very easy. I think if you put this point up towards the top, it seems to work best in that direction for a left-handed person. We'll switch back to my normal, which is more comfortable, and moving with my right hand. Just gonna set my palette down and throw in this mountain for us. After I put in the points where I think, you know, is a good spot, we're going to pull out the paint. And we don't really want it to be too thick in there, but we can use this to help shape our mountain. I'm going to add a little bit more paint on this side. Now these mountains, the inspiration for this painting today, I believe, is a mountain range in more the Phoenix area of Arizona. So this would be the Sonoran Desert. And I grew up just south of there, where it is a little bit less hot and there are some different mountains, but I thought it would just be really fun to paint some saguaros, paint some mountains. And the only time that these mountains are really, I think one of their most shining moments is when they've got that touch of snow on them. And so that's what we're gonna do today. We're putting in our mountain right now, and I'm just getting some shape with my knife so that we can pick up our 2-inch brush, and we're gonna tap out and blend out the bottom of this mountain. I'm just moving my brush in the direction, kind of trying to keep this always pointing up towards the top of the mountain. So we're moving in this fan type of a direction. That's how we're always going to tap out on the base of the mountains. It just helps to keep the direction of the land going in the same way that we want. Now we'll get some of that extra paint out of the brush by just putting it down here on the bottom. And it'll help us with harmonizing our painting. We just want to get rid of that paint from our brush. Very nice. And then we will lift up in that same direction that we were tapping out the base of this mountain. Just lifting up and getting out some of these brush strokes. We really want to blend the base of the mountain till it's a little bit misty, and that gives a very realistic look. And we almost always have a little bit of haze, or it's farther away, so you can't quite pick up all of the features that are at the base of a mountain. And that's what we're going for today. So we're using this liquid white that's still on the canvas and blending it up into the mountain, and using our brush just to soften the base of it. I'm going all the way across, and I'm going to stop there. I want to pause for just a moment and say thank you to everybody who's been subscribing to my channel and supporting me along the way for my journey. I've been on YouTube for, I think, just over a year now. I should really check on that, but I broke 5,000 subscribers about a month ago, and it's just been climbing, and I really, really appreciate all of you. I especially wanted to thank my family for being so supportive through this. I know it hasn't always been the easiest, but I really love what I'm doing, and thank you so much for being here with me. Let's go ahead and highlight our mountain here, and I just noticed that there's a hair. I decided I'm just going to connect this one over here and move. There we go. Making a few adjustments here, and then I'm going to bring the mountain down just a little touch more. So I'm just dragging out a little bit more paint and bringing it down into this area a little bit more. So we've got a bigger mountain than we thought. Why not? It'll be fun. Gets you some good practice on painting mountains with knives. And you're never gonna get better unless you try. So give it a try. I'm going to pick up my 2-inch brush again and just tap out the base once more, just a little bit. I'm pushing pretty hard, as you can tell. You really just want to blend out the base of that paint like we were doing before, really softening it. Getting rid of some of that paint. We'll just lift up, keeping in mind the shape of your mountain. All the way across now. Just want to get some of these thick spots. Now before we continue, we're going to add in a little bit of cloud. By taking your dirty fan brush that you already had, we're just going to go right into that mountain color and tap into it on the end of the brush. We still have titanium white on here. Grab a tiny bit more, and we'll just put in a few clouds that are just a little closer now. Right at the base of this area here. A little bit more over here as well. Soften that with your 2-inch brush. Same thing over here. Lift and blend. Leave that just for a second, and we're going to add some highlights onto our mountain. To mix up our color, we are going to clean the palette knife and grab titanium white. And we're doing, I do have just a tiny bit of our mountain color in there, and we're going to grab some bright red. Cut off a little roll of paint. And the light should be coming from the left here, so we're going to highlight accordingly. And we've got a real thick paint here, so it should stick to what we already have on the canvas. I'm picking up more paint, and I'm just dragging my knife. As I get lower, I'm opening up the knife more. So I like to start with the butt end of the knife. It seems to work really well for me. And I put it in just with the corner and then open up so that you get this nice look here of that mountain kind of opening up towards you. I'm cleaning off my knife, and we'll pick up a little more paint and just keep moving down as we get closer. Picking up more paint as you need, and just deciding where the sun is hitting on this mountain as our sun is setting. And if you like, if it's easier, you can use the top end of the knife as well, and you'll get just a slightly different look. So you can play with that and see what works well for you. Just a little bit up on this one, I think. Okay, and before we add our shadows, I like to go up into this highlight color and just grab some of it and pull it down. and you can just grab it, pull it in the opposite direction, and it gives you a little bit of an idea of how your mountain is going to look before you put on the shadows, so you can still decide if you want to change it or make some adjustments. I'm going to keep picking up just a tiny bit more of our highlight color, and we'll just work a few more pieces of highlight down into this area. And we'll do more in a little bit once we do our shadows. Let's pick up some more tiny. I've got a clean knife, and we'll get some titanium white with this blue mixture, which is fine. We'll just use that. And we're gonna grab a little roll of paint. Actually, I want just a little more mountain mixture, tiny bit darker. We'll add a little bit of brown. I like that. Okay, cut off a little roll of paint. And starting on the opposite side, we'll pull down and get some shadows on this. And just pulling in the opposite direction that we were putting our highlights and just dragging out some shadows. Where were we? Okay, now I want to just take my 2-inch brush and tap out a little bit on the base of this, just a tiny bit, and lift up. I'm going to step back and take a look. Okay, I like that. Next, we're going to take our palette knife and go right back into the titanium white and some yellow ochre. Just a little bit of sunshine. Cut off a little roll of that. And we're going to just pick out some spots where the sun is really dancing off this mountain. And I think we've got a sunset scene. It's just glistening off of some of these areas of snow. There's lots of rocks and other things up here. It's very rugged. Clean off my knife. I'm going to mix up just a tiny bit more of that paint, same color, just yellow ochre in our titanium white. There is just a touch of bright red in there as well. And we're just deciding where the sun is really going to be grabbing on to these rocks and snow and how they're going to be glistening. And I'm using a really thick paint still, and so it's grabbing onto the paint we already have onto the canvas. So a very light touch is important. I'm going to clean off my knife, One more time, mix up some paint. Yellow ochre, bright red, just a tiny bit of each. And just a couple more, just sparkles. Really make it pop. There's just so much color. It's quite a surprise if you've never been to the Sonoran Desert. The amount of color that the sun, just pops out on sunsets are really spectacular. And when you get all this snow on the mountain, it's going to reflect all that light. And so we know it's up in the sky right now, so we're going to put it on the mountain as well. I just wanted a little bit more, kind of like a peach tone, so I added just a little bit more bright red into this, and we're just popping in some color, moving in the direction of the mountain that we've already established here, and we're just pulling out and picking some highlights. And I think we just need just a touch over on this far right side. Right over here. I think this one just needs a little whisper. It's just a little bit. I'm going to pull a tiny bit down. Okay, let's take a clean brush or semi-clean, just tap lightly, so light, and lift, whisper. Just barely pick up just a touch and soften out. And I think we need just a touch. All right, we're gonna try something with the 2-inch brush. And we're gonna tap into that mountain color. And we're just going to pick out kind of some hilly areas connecting these ranges over here. And it doesn't quite matter. You don't have to get super specific. Just get a little bit of movement. And we'll just start with a few little ones in here. I want to come this one down. On this side. Just using our brush, tapping and picking out some hills way out here. Pick up a little bit more paint. Okay, we'll stop there and pick up a clean 2-inch brush and tap out at the base of this. I opened the door just to get a little bit of fresh air, but the birds, we have I think they're scrub jays, little blue jay type birds, and there's some babies out, so they're very loud. Hopefully you can't hear it in the background. I'll go check. I'm going to pick up my fan brush and come in and put in a few highlights on these hills. With the 2-inch brush, we're going to put in some highlights by tapping into the titanium white. We do want a good bit on the brush for tapping in. And we're going to grab some yellow ochre. Touch more. Okay, now that we've tapped that into the brush, get a good bit on the brush, nice and loaded, and then we're going to get some liquid white. We need to thin down this paint so that it sticks to our other paint. So we just grab a little bit and thin down our titanium white. We're going to pick out a few highlights. More paint. We're just going to keep grabbing some more paint and applying it, and make sure that you thin it down if you need to, and clean out your brush if you're picking up too much of that mountain color of that blue. Now I just picked up a little bit more paint. More paint. We're using a lot of paint today. Some more over here. And we'll put in some right up in here. Okay, now we have our other brush that's been dirty. We'll grab some titanium white and just stick with that blue color, and as we mix it into our mixture, it should just lighten up into a nice gray. And we'll just add in some areas where there's still some snow, and then we do want to still leave some dark areas as well. So don't cover up all of it, but we are putting in some shadows by making it a light blue. It just adds a little bit of different depths in there. I'll do just a little bit over here, not too much. And then we're gonna blend it out. So we'll clean off our brush. All right, the brush is clean, and we just want to soften this out. It is further away. We don't really want too much detail. kind of just want to let the imagination go when we get up here, so we're allow some of this to just happen the way it wants to. And I'm just going to wipe off that brush one more time, and then we'll tap out of the base of this. Just really want to soften it and get that liquid white to mix. Turn this into a little bit more of a gray. Go ahead and clean off your brush, whatever you've got left, and we'll just soften this. And just use this color that we have down at the base of the canvas. That should still have some liquid white in it, and we're just going to soften all of this so that we don't have too much paint anywhere, and it just looks nice and misty. Working in kind of a semicircle here. And then we'll just very lightly go in the direction of the mountain up here and kind of soften out the last bit of the paint that's just right on the edge. We want to just make it real nice and soft. Barely touching the canvas. Okay. I want to add just a little bit of highlight on these clouds in this back area. So I'm going to grab some titanium white on my sable brush, which is my soft bristle brush. Just a tiny bit on the end, and I'm just going to tap in a couple areas to add just a tiny bit of highlight, and then we'll soften it out. I'm wiping off the brush, and then I'm going to blend these in just a little bit. And maybe just a tiny bit over here. And I'm just using a tiny bit of white on the end of the brush and just tapping in a tiny bit of highlight. I grabbed a little bit of yellow ochre. Okay, wipe off the brush, and we'll soften out a few of these. Okay, the last step to this back area here is I want to add just a little bit of that peach color that we were working with on the mountain. So we're going to grab some titanium white on our brush, on our fan brush, and come right up here to the bright red, just right at the, get a little bit of that into the brush, and some yellow ochre. So we should have a little bit of a peach color. and liquid white. Now I'll thin it down. We're just going to pick up a few areas and touch on some peach tones. Make sure that you have it nice and thin so that it'll stick. Okay, and we'll pick up the 2-inch brush and just soften it out just a tiny bit. We just still want this to be out in the background, not too crazy bright, but we do want those colors in there. It really helps to make it pop. I want to clean off a little piece of space on my palette, so I'm just going to do that now. I'll save the paint, but we'll wipe off this. Now this was our mountain mixture here. I'm actually going to move this out of our way too. And we're going to pick up all of our dark colors and put them here into the middle. Mix that up. We'll grab a little bit more of that sap green and just mix up a big pile of paint. Laying it out and flipping it over. Making sure that it's mixed all the way through. I wanted to grab some more Alizarin Crimson to mix to this color over here, just to darken it a little bit more. Should give us a really, really dark brown. It's still a little bit to the green. We'll pick up our 2-inch brush and just get off some of that excess paint that we had on it. You can use any of your dirty 2-inch brushes that you've had going. And we're just going to take that brush and drag it into our paint. We want a lot of it today. Pulling it in one direction. Making sure that we're really getting a lot of paint on the end there. We're going to take that brush and flip it up. And push your brush into the canvas. And see what falls off. Your bristles are going to start to bend, and you really want to use that to get some movement. And just allow it to come off. We'll get more paint. Sometimes you have to pile it back up so that you can, access it. So I'll show you. We're just pushing the brush. I'm not dragging, I'm pushing the brush into the canvas, and the bristles are bending, and that's what's pulling the paint off. Pushing the brush into the canvas, push and pull off. Now I'm going to pile up my paint again so we can get just a little bit more. Just grab all of it and put it in the pile up. And get some more into the brush. And I'm just going to fill this whole bottom area with this dark color. know, you can definitely take more time to pick out some more bushes and be more particular, but this is just the dark color. So if we're putting all of this on here anyway, we'll then decide where our bushes are when we highlight it. Just saves us a step. This just puts in the background, the texture. I'm gonna just make sure I like the tops up here. And I'm gonna pile up my paint one more time, make sure that we get the dark areas right in these corners. I hope y'all are having fun if you're painting along. Maybe you can save this one for later and paint along another time. It's not terribly difficult. I think we're having a lot of fun with these colors. Let me know what you think in the comments below. Okay, we're gonna take our knife and scratch in a few sticks and twigs back here. Okay, we can always put some more of those in later. Now I'm going to pick up, let's pick up our blue, green, crimson, put them into a pile. We'll mix up more of our dark color. We might need more later, I don't know, but now we've got a big pile of it. So we're going to thin this down. If you pull out some paint onto the palette, it makes it a lot easier, so you're working with a real small pile. And we just want to thin this down until it starts to run on our canvas. I like to wiggle the brush into the paint and then start to twirl it around, and you'll be able to tell if the paint has thinned enough for you to be able to work with it. You want to make sure that you're loading a lot of paint in there. This brush will hold a lot of paint for you. So really make sure that you're filling it up with paint and twirling it to get it into that nice fine point. We're just going to put in some saguaros. We're in the Sonoran Desert, so there's going to be plenty of them. So go ahead and put in as many or as few as you would like. I'm just going to start out with some ideas and then we'll develop them more. Be sure to let me know in the comments below what you think about this painting if you're painting along or if you're just watching. I'd love to know what you think, where you are. Maybe you have a scene that you'd like me to paint or to be painted on a tutorial. Send it to my email, Kaylee@KayleeRakowski.com, Kaylee, Kaylee. I'm just going to round off some of these and get them a little bit bigger. Make sure that their tops are looking good. Just putting in some outlines here. Next, we're going to add a few highlights to our background by picking up the 1-inch brush. We're going to grab just a tiny bit of this dark color here into the brush just to kind of dirty the paint, and yellow ochre, touch of sap green, and we will lighten that with some liquid white, and this will also thin it down so it'll stick. We're just tapping and dragging into the paint, kind of a dual motion. We want to break up the end of this brush. I flipped it up and we're pushing and pulling the brush off just like we did before. We'll pick up some more paint. Still with the 1-inch brush, we're picking up yellow ochre by just dragging the brush and then giving it a little tap to break it up. And we're just going to pick out a few more bushes out here to highlight. Now, most things in the desert are going to be pretty brown this time of year. So we don't have to try too hard to make it look very realistic. We're just going to add in a few of these. I want to pick up some titanium white to thin down the paint, and going right into the yellow ochre. We're going to lighten it even more with more liquid white and a bright red, just a touch. And we're going to tap with that paint loaded on the top and just let some of that paint pull right off. I'm going to pick up some bright red and yellow ochre, just darkening the color now. And I'm actually going to tap the brush so that we get a few varieties of trees so they don't all look the same. And we'll go over to this other side and do the same thing and just pick out a few to highlight. I'm going to put a little bit more yellow ochre on my palette. And I'll leave that out in case I need more. We're going through paint today. These paintings are really fun though, because when they dry, they have a lot of texture, which is really, I mean, it's entertaining for me to look at them. When I'm watching them dry, they really develop. Sap Green. We're going to go right into this liquid white that we have up here with the dirty brush that we were using. Get some yellow ochre and sap green. A little of our mountain color, a little darker here. I want to take this color and we're going to go right up on the sunshine side of our saguaros. Pick up some more paint, give it a twirl, and we'll do one more little line up it. We'll do the same thing on all of them. We're just going in with this kind of medium green over the dark to add a little bit of highlight, picking out just some very simple saguaro features. They're ribbed and tall, so they're going to have a little bit of texture to them, but as they get further away you probably won't see very much of that, so we don't have to try as hard. We'll just pick up on all of them, a little highlight going right up on the left side. Make sure that your paint is thin enough that it'll come off onto this other layer here. Whew, that was a little bright. Really pulled them out of the dark there. Just some little highlights here and there. And we're going to clean off the brush a little bit. And we want to do a little bit more highlight. So we're going to go into the yellow ochre and our mixture over here. We just want to lighten it with some liquid white. I really want it to pop, so I'm going to add a little bit more green, just so it's a little bit of a brighter color. Liquid white. And we'll just touch on a few areas. To give this a good last highlight on the outside. Just pulling down a few more lines, like little ridges where you think they might be. Making sure that you're always picking up fresh paint so it's nice and bright. Just right on the edge little highlight. These bigger ones. And now we want to do a little bit of a shadow color, so we're going to get some of this green and go over here to our blue and pick up a little mountain of our dark mixture. Blue and our dark mixture. And we're just going to add a little bit so that we can get this real shape on this back side. Now we'll have some of that base dark black color that we used first, showing through all of these little features that we just added of different colors, giving it a little bit of shape with not a lot of effort. And it's okay if you have a little bit more of a shaky hand. Sometimes I do, sometimes I don't. I'm using my arm to help stabilize my hand over here. But just having some dimension and changing up the shape is totally realistic because plants don't really grow straight up. So add a little bit of variety to it and don't feel like you can't paint it just because you can't paint straight or something, because these definitely aren't straight. Still just going with that dark blue green right around the outside. And lastly, we are going to take our fan brush with some liquid white on it. And we're gonna go into the yellow ochre, come over here into a clean spot. I want a really bright, thin color. I'm just thinning it down with some of my brush wash and liquid white. And we'll just tap that into, to separate the bristles a little bit. And we'll just pick out a couple little points where we'll have some of the spines being lit up by the sun. Get a little more paint, making sure it's nice and fresh. And just pick out some spots. We don't want to do too much, but just a tiny bit. We'll add a little bit of fun to the painting, and you really don't have to try very hard. Just tapping these tiny little highlights where the sun is just glistening as it's setting over here off of the spines. And with a thin paint, you just tap and they'll fall right off. I'm going to pick up my 1-inch brush again and come right up here into this kind of greenish mixture. And we're going to mix up a slightly different color with some yellow ochre and bright green. Just a fun, bright color. Just a little bit more. And we'll come in and add just a few of these green, there is going to be just a few things that might still be with a pop of color in it. Not everything is brown in the desert, especially if there's this much snow up here. These middle areas here tend to get quite a lot more water, so in the winter time there is a little bit of a hidden gem in some desert areas where you'll get some snow melt and just some beautiful colors. we're just popping in some bushes here in the foreground, just adding in what shapes, different shapes, and I'm mixing in between the greens and the yellows, maybe picking up a little bit of Alizarin Crimson and just tapping it into the brush so we have some variety. And we're just going to pop in some bushes, making them happen. You didn't know they were there, huh? Now they are. Sap Green, yellow ochre, sometimes a little bit of bright red. Ooh, yeah. Maybe a little more, I like that. I need some liquid white. I got a little bit too thick here, so we'll thin it down, then our paints will stick again. I got a little bit crazy with the liquid white there. That's okay though, we can work with it. I'm just gonna add some color and details that, like the little varieties of pop and color without having too specific of anything going on. It just makes your mind kind of wander, and it allows you to just see yourself there because you're not really hung up on anything in particular. We're gonna just soften out, clean that off, I guess. Clean off your brush and soften out a few of these. I wanna just add kind of a misty tone into some of these bushes back here. I think a large, there'll be Palo Verde and creosote bush, sage, so we have definitely some blues, which we didn't even really include a ton in here. Let's do that. Maybe a little bit of a sage bush. We'll pick up some titanium white or some liquid white into our dirty brush. We've got a blue over here. That's what we were using. So we'll just pick that up and pop some of this color down in here. And we'll find some of our sagebrush. Yeah. I think there's at least one version down there. Maybe check me on that, but I'm pretty sure. We'll have some blues. I think right here there's one. Kind of a silver, fun color. I love that. You can leave it out if you don't like it. That's totally fine. This is just, I'm just showing you how to get this to come off, to get the paint to work, and you know, showing you some colors to use together. And I hope that you create your own paintings that are just inspired by this. And if you do, maybe you can send them to me at my email, Kaylee@KayleeRakowski.com. I'd love to see if you decided to paint something maybe inspired by this scene, or you were very closely following along. I'd love to see it, so send it over to me. Maybe I'll put it on my website. All right, let's add in just a few more swirls here in the foreground. I'm gonna clean off our dirty brush, our script liner brush, and get some more of our dark color. We want a good bit of it here. Twirl it in that paint. And I'm gonna pick out, oh, be brave. How about right here? Nice big one. And this one's a little older. Gonna give it some arms. I feel like I remember for each arm it's like 100 years on a saguaro for its age. So if it's got a few arms, then, you know, might be pretty old. If you haven't ever been out there, the Saguaro National Forest in Tucson, Arizona is a real fun place to be. Then you can go to the Oregon Pipe National Forest, also pretty cool. It's just west of there. And see some fun prickly things. There's a lot of them out there. I'm going to pick out a few more saguaros, and I decided to use, we're going to pick up the filbert brush, wherever that is. Filbert brush, go right into that dark mixture. This is just going to save us some time. And we'll pick out, maybe he's got an arm over here. And I really wanted to make this one a little taller. And he just goes all the way down. And maybe we'll leave that one. How about we'll do one right over here. This one's got, it's got a few real long ones. He's worked real hard. Maybe just a little bit bigger to support all that. That would probably be pretty heavy. Don't want him falling down. He just grew up there. And that other arm just kind of falls right there behind. Still there. There we go. Nice. And I'm thinking we need some more because we have time. How about it? Maybe one back there. And maybe here. And this one's got put him down there. I think I need an arm over here. A real classic look. Okay, let's grab our script liner. We are going to work in the opposite direction today on these ones. And we're going to do the dark first, the shadow. So we're going to do a little bit of a blue-green and put in our shadows. A little bit more. We'll do just a few little, trying to leave some space so that that dark will still show through on the back. You don't want to cover all the dark. Going a little crazy there. Do this one over here, a little bit more blue. And as I'm dragging this brush down, it's a little challenging to show, but I'm gonna try real zoom in here for you. And as you drag the brush down, you can watch my index finger, and I'm actually twirling the brush as I move down. So that keeps it into a fine point as you move down to the bottom. So that's maybe something to work on if you've noticed or you have a little bit of difficulty getting some of that paint to stay in a finer line, then that's one way that I'd say to try. So just give it a twirl. And if you have to, you can always put your palette down. I'm assuming most of you probably do anyway, and you can use your hand to support. And kind of ran out of paint there. Grab a little more. See? So as I was twirling, you can see it's also going to be pulling a finer line out onto the edge because we're pushing that paint out. So if you can get the hang of that, that would be my best advice for that technique. And I'm going to show you a few more times so you'll be able to watch and really watch the hand. We really need to make sure the paint is thin. That's the most important part. But if your paint is thin and you're still not able to get that line, then the twirl is where it's at. And you can practice it just on your palette. We're doing this same movement. So you can practice it by dragging it through your paint and just twirl. And that can get you some, a few practice ones. And then as you come up here, we'll just send it down. Give it a little twirl. And I like how the brush will still move around because there's so many bristles on here, even though they're really fine. It really gives a good realistic look of movement, so it's not all just one shape, one straight line. So we'll come out here onto this next one. I'm gonna lay the brush down and push. See, that was hard, it was long. And so getting out to the end, I definitely, if you have to stop and start over and pick up another area because your twirl isn't making it, then that works too. Starting in the center, we're twirling the brush so you can stop, pick up some more paint. And then I like to start just slightly above, and then you're right back into it. Not too bad. I want to pick up just a little bit more of a blue. Kind of ran out of blue, is turning more green. So we do want to make sure we're still working with our shadow color, a dark kind of greenish blue. Make sure it's nice and thin. There we go, nice. We'll add some over to this guy. The liquid white. A little more liquid white. We do want it to stand out, not too dark, but is it just right? Okay, pick up a little bit more paint. I was running out there. And I'm twirling that brush. Pick up some more paint. I'm just going to clean up this. There we go. And we'll put in a couple more. And one more here. And we'll throw in some on these other arms that are kind of hiding in the background. That one there, and we've got this one over here. Twirling that brush. Just getting that paint to pull off. Now we're going to highlight those. I think I want to do just a tiny bit more dark on this one over here. Kind of lost some. And I'm just dragging in some of the base color that we used here just to add a little bit more dark. All right, and we'll clean off that script liner brush. And we're going to highlight our saguaros now. Just like before, we want a nice clean brush. We'll go into our liquid white and thin out some yellow ochre and sap green. A little more sap green. The yellow ochre just helps to kind of brown it, and also will also brighten it in a weird way too because of the sun that is going to be shining over here. So this gives us, on this outside edge, we're pulling out this nice bright highlight, and we're going to go all the way down. Pick up more paint. We're using that same color, yellow ochre, sap green, and we'll put one more. This time we'll stop here. Do some more paint. And we want to pick out this one that's hiding way over here. Tiny little bit. Moving forward. I'm still twirling my brush to get that paint to pull off. This side's a little harder. We're twirling it in the opposite direction. I want to twirl it out, so this would be clockwise. Where before we were going counterclockwise on the outside of this. So just try and think about the shape of this. It's a rounded plant, okay? So that might help you with the way that you're twirling when we're on this side. On the left side, we're twirling around it this way. And when we're on the right side, we're twirling it around counterclockwise. And I just realized we did not do anything about this silly little arm over here. So let's just give him some pop so he really feels like he's not getting left out. Poor guy. Gal, I don't know. There we go. That's nice. Let's clean that off now. We need to get lighter color. I've got my light color, my highlight color for the saguaro, just going down on the front, giving the brush a twirl. Down we go. More paint. Make sure it's nice and thin. I think we need just a little bit more here. Tiny bit more of our highlight color. We'll just dance in a little bit on this back. Still have a little highlight. And we'll move over to these ones. Just pushing that paint down to this highlight side of the saguaro. Sneaky, huh? Yeah, a little tricky, but you'll get the hang of it if you do a few, and you can always wipe it off and try again. That's the beauty of the oil paints. They're always wet. Well, they'll be wet for the period that you're painting. If you're doing this single sitting like me. And then if you don't like it, like your mountain, you can scrape your mountain off and do that again. There's really no rules. And it does make it a lot nicer if you have the time and you know it just doesn't go as planned. Now you're not wasting a canvas and you can just try again. And when you try again right after you have a hard time, sometimes you get it right away and sometimes you don't. But you're going to learn a lot more on those hard days than if it just all goes perfectly, because you remember the challenges that you had to learn through and struggle through, and you're going to be like, yeah, I don't know if I want to do it quite like that again, maybe. And hopefully those lessons will help you. But by just wiping this paint off, you can just start right over and do it again, and maybe you'll like it that time. And maybe you'll just get more practice and it still won't look good, and that's okay too. I have plenty of paintings that I don't show people, so they sit on a shelf. Maybe I'll show you guys sometime, but there's quite a few that just will probably just sit there forever and they'll never be seen. And I'm okay with that. Maybe I'll paint over them someday. Okay, now I do want to take a brush, something that I have. Let's find, how about the sable brush? I'm just gonna real lightly lift up and kind of blend just a tiny, 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 tiny little bit. And just soften out some of those colors and go down to wipe that off. If you picked up some paint, we're just softening. That'll do. And we want to use our fan brush, go into our highlight that we used for our bristles earlier, and we'll do that again. And just pick out a few. I want it to be a little bit more yellow, like the sun is just really sparkling. And we'll pick out some little spines, some thorns. Right where the sun is just shining on the edge. They'll be popping out. Maybe some here in the darker area, just in the middle. Some over here. We're just tapping with a really thin paint where we think there's going to be some highlights on the trees. Saguaros. These aren't trees. Saguaro. I got you there, huh? Tap. Just tap them out. Okay, one last thing we're gonna do on these saguaros is just add in a teensy bit more of our highlight color, because we really want them to pop. It's just a little bit brighter. You can tell it's a tiny bit brighter. We'll go with that and just pick out one or two spots and really make it nice and bright. Don't forget about this one over here. Okay, let's leave that. And we're gonna add some more highlights on these bushes in the foreground here. But first, we'll scrape out just a few little sticks and twigs, because they will be there. Okay, let's leave that there, and we're going to pick up our 1-inch brush that we were using before, going right into the Sap Green, get it a nice and light, bright color, and we'll just pick out some of these darker greens that we already have and just tap in some highlight on them. We really want to make some of them pop. Maybe a little bit more just right over the front. And I'm just tapping into that bright green color. I like that. Now I want to do a little bit on the blue as well. So I'm gonna clean out the brush just a little bit. Grab some liquid white and head over to our blue mixture and just tap in and get a little bit of that nice bright blue. Maybe a little bit over here. Now to finish this off, I'm going to sign it up. We need to clean off our script liner brush. And we'll go right into our bright red and thin that down. Till we get a nice thin paint. We want it to almost run. Twirl that into a point, and we'll sign that. I just signed mine with my initials. You can sign yours however you want. It's your signature, and that's your choice. Well, that wraps it up for me today. Thanks for joining me. My name is Kaylee, and I paint wet on wet oil paintings. Today we just did a wonderful winter desert scene. I hope you really enjoyed it. Please let me know in the comments below. I'd like to thank all of you for being here with me today, my friends and my family for supporting me through this painting journey. I really appreciate all of you for being there for me. And Brian, thank you for the donations. You've really contributed a lot. Pin it to paint it later. Let me know. I would love to see the finished product. Kaylee at KayleeRakowski.com. You can email me there and send me your pictures. Thank you for being here with me. Smile and be happy, friends.